Hello, everyone, and welcome to another insightful episode of MedSynapse podcast series. I'm your host, Hetvi Shah, and today we are unlocking the mysteries of lifestyle disorders for diabetes management. Did you know that according to a recent survey, over 80% of people with diabetes have at least one other chronic condition such as hypertension or hyperlipidemia? So the interplay between these lifestyle disorders and metabolic syndrome is complex and requires a multifaceted approach. And to help us understand this better, we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Aarti Joshi. Dr. Aarti is a distinguished consulting physician and diabetologist with over 2 decades of experience in the medical field. She currently serves as a medical officer at SmithFit, which is a pioneering digital platform for diabetes management. Her holistic approach emphasizes patient education, lifestyle modification, and personalized treatment plan. So, welcome, doctor, and we are so thrilled to have you today and learn more about this topic.
Hey, thank you so much, Hetvi, for inviting me to this podcast, and it's a big honor to be here on this platform. Thanks again.
Likewise, doctor, thank you. So, before we jump into our main topic, could you share a bit about your professional journey and background and what actually inspired you to specialize in diabetes management?
Sure. So, Hetvi, I did my MBBS from KJ Somaiya Medical College, Mumbai in 2002, and I did diploma in anesthesiology from Bhatia Hospital, again from Mumbai. In early years of my career, I worked mainly in critical care and anesthesiology in multi-speciality hospitals, but later I moved my focus to family medicine, mainly to have work-life balance because of personal commitments, right? So I started working in NGOs and clinic chains, etc. So that's the time I realized the burden of lifestyle disorders on the society. Every fourth, fifth patient we were seeing was having some kind of the chronic condition, be it obesity or pre-diabetes or diabetes or PCOS, so many of the things, right? So I thought if I had to manage them well, I have to upgrade myself, and I did a fellowship in diabetes management from Liverpool University, UK. And since last 8 to 10 years, my focus has been on managing diabetes and other metabolic disorders. So currently, as you said, I'm working with as a chief medical officer with Ruby Smith, which is a digital platform for managing metabolic disorders.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, doctor. And I think it is so incredible to see your dedication to diabetes and metabolic disorders. So now let's dive into our main topic. According to you, how does the interplay between metabolic syndrome and lifestyle disorders contribute to the development and progression of diabetes?
Right. So let's understand what is metabolic syndrome first, right? So metabolic syndrome is nothing but a cluster of conditions that occur together, increasing the risk of one getting heart disease or stroke or type 2 diabetes, right? And what these conditions include are increased blood pressure, high sugars, high blood sugars, excess body fat, especially around the waist, low HDL, which is the high density lipoprotein, which is a type of good fat, and high triglycerides, which is a bad fat, right? So if 3 or more of the above conditions are present, that means the person has metabolic syndrome, right? And what are the risk factors of getting metabolic syndrome? Age, genetic conditions. If you have a strong family history, then your risk of getting these conditions obviously increases. And last but not the least is the poor lifestyle. So what happens is the underlying root cause behind all these metabolic disorders is insulin resistance, right? So what happens here is body is not able to utilize insulin. The early stages insulin production is good, right? Whenever person is having junk food, high carb food, all the wrong type of food, what is happening in the body is trying to produce more insulin. The stage of hyperinsulinemia starts, that increases the production of fat, so lipogenesis is happening. This fat is getting deposited inside the visceral organs, so that is called as visceral fat. It is also getting deposited in the adipose tissues, which is seen from outside, and this fat position everywhere, what happens is the glucose is now struggling to get into the cells, right? And insulin is trying to push the glucose into the cells so that the person gets the energy. But this struggle of getting glucose into the cell is called as insulin resistance, and this becomes a vicious cycle. The more poor lifestyle, more fat generation, high insulin production, and the struggle increases, right? And we have to break this cycle. Then only we can combat these disorders. And Hetvi, believe you me, all the changes are going on inside the body for at least a decade before the person is being diagnosed with pre-diabetes or diabetes. And body keeps sending us a lot of signals to act upon and reverse the conditions. And if we can pick that up at the right stage, definitely we can stay away from these metabolic disorders.
Yes, rightly said. I think managing it earlier and making a lifestyle changes at an early stage is beneficial, rather than coming it to the last time, be getting diagnosed and then doing something, taking action.
Absolutely.
Now, what evidence-based strategies do you employ to tailor lifestyle modification plans for individuals with diabetes who have coexisting conditions such as hypertension or hyperlipidemia?
Okay. So, as per the ADA, American Diabetes Association, diabetes or any other metabolic condition should be managed in a holistic way, right? So, there are 5 crucial things we need to focus upon. The first important thing is the diabetes self-management education and support. DSME and DSMS is what they call, right? So, educate and create awareness among both the patients and their family members. Inform them what the condition is, what all things can happen because of these conditions, why it has started at the first place, right? So creating that awareness is very important. Empowering them to take care of themselves, right, by self-monitoring their sugars or blood pressure or their weight, taking care of their feet, regular screening tests, etc. So they know what all things they should do and why they are doing that particular thing, right? So that knowledge transfer is very important. And I always tell my patient that, I mean, I'm again saying this as a term as a patient, but I always tell them you need not treat yourself as patient all your lifetime, because this is a chronic condition. You're not a patient, you are like a regular person, but you need to be very conscious and mindful of what you're doing, what you're eating, right? So overall, changing their perspective towards looking at these conditions need to be re-looked at it. Second important thing is medical nutrition therapy. What you eat, how much to eat, what things to be avoided, again needs to be explained, and in such a way that they are able to follow that. Third important thing is the physical activity. So at least 30 to 45 minutes of any kind of exercise the person is able to do daily, at least 5 days a week, is what is minimally required, right? So, and it can be as simple as going for a walk every day, or jogging, or running, or going to gym, swimming. Any activity the person is able to do it consistently and enjoy doing it, right? So that is important. The fourth thing is, if somebody is smoking, we have to try to quit smoking, and alcohol consumption also, if it is there. If you can completely avoid it, nothing like that, but if you can't, then always limit the consumption. There's always a thin line between how much is the occasional drinking and social drinking, and we don't even realize people do get dependent on it, right? So all those education around their habits is important. And last but not the least, where even if the person is able to take care of the first 4 things to the T, still we see that the blood sugars or blood pressure are not being maintained or controlled, and the only reason behind that is the mental health or the stress, right? Everybody is going through hell of a stress nowadays, be it at personal level or professional level. So we should be able to identify the root cause of that stress, and we should be able to manage that. So these are the 5 important pillars which doctors, healthcare professionals who are managing these conditions should handle them themselves, or they should have a team managing these conditions, because sometimes doctors, we do not have that much time to spend with each patient talking about everything. So we should have a team who can spend enough time to explain the patient, to work on these conditions, because as you had said, diabetes will not come alone, right? It is not a single element. It will always come with hypertension, hyperlipidemia, thyroid problem, PCOS, etc. So all these comorbidities are invariably going to be together. So we have to work in a holistic way to manage each condition.
Yes, I think those are some excellent strategies, and even with healthcare professionals, I think at an individual level also everybody should take care.
Yes.
Empowering them, the patients, truly makes a difference, I think. Now, speaking of lifestyle modification, can you elaborate on the role of advanced dietary interventions such as ketogenic or intermittent fasting and in managing particularly diabetes and their impact on metabolic health? And how do you determine which approach is most appropriate for your patients?
Okay, so in my opinion, Happy, we should follow a diet which is sustainable and safe to follow it for a longer period of time, or maybe for lifelong, right? So while advising the diet plan to a particular patient, we have to keep few things in mind. First thing, whether it is practical to follow in terms of what kind of staple food they have, what is the availability of the ingredients in the region, what are the cooking methods we are advising, what is the cooking time, etc. Then whether it is easy on their pocket, right? If we keep telling them use almond milk, coconut milk, all those soya milk, or all throughout, to a farmer or somebody who is at a weaker socioeconomic status, he is not able to follow that, right? So we have to consider that fact. Third thing is whether it is safe. Is any kind of diet or any advices which you are giving to the patient, whether it will cause any health hazard, or what is the long-term impact which can happen on the health because of these kind of diets. And the last thing is whether it is sustainable, whether a person is able to sustain it for a longer period of time. So I believe we need to focus on a balanced diet which gives us good nutrition, energy, and healthy weight loss or glycemic control. So what we eat, how much we eat, what time we eat, and what combination of macro and micronutrients can be consumed together, etc., which needs to be explained to the patient along with why as a sub-question to each one. Right? So if we explain to them why we want them to follow a particular thing, the probability of patients following it or adhering to your guidelines is way higher than you just giving them orders to follow this or avoid this. And to your specific question of ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting or any kind of fad diet, so to say, they give you instant results, but for a longer period or long term, it is not recommended. It is not safe because it can cause kidney damage, it can cause heart issues, etc. Especially patients who are living with diabetes, they do have these associated comorbidities or complications, and then we have to be very cautious in such cases, right? If I talk about intermittent fasting, patients who are living with diabetes with multiple OHs, oral medications, or on insulin dosages, there is always a risk of hypoglycemia if patient is following intermittent fasting in this situation. So we have to keep all these things in mind. So in my opinion, a balanced nutrition with good a balanced diet which gives you good nutrition is something which we should follow. A simple thing, it should have good amount of proteins, good amount of fibers, low carbohydrates, have it at frequent intervals, preferably 3 major meals and 2 mid meals, and eat it on time. Don't have late dinners, don't have too much of gap between your meals. So these simple things which will help get your blood sugars and other parameters on track. It is equally effective in weight loss as well, getting cholesterol under control, getting PCOS in place. I mean, the hormonal imbalance is also corrected with these kinds of diets. So balanced diet is always better over fat diet.
Right. So, those such diets help in managing like diabetes or control diabetes as well, because then diabetes is a lifelong disease, and then these are something which is sometimes short-term diets are there. So, does it help in long-term management?
Long-term management, as I said, Hetvi, it will not help because ketogenic diet will cause kidney issues, right? Ketogenic diet is nothing but very high protein, high fat diet, right? So we are giving them, extra work to the kidneys, right? We are giving them extra fat, so the levels of cholesterol will go haywire. If somebody has a risk of heart disease, that will increase further with the ketogenic diet. So young patients without any comorbidities, if they want some instant results, it can be advised for a shorter duration of time, but one has to be very careful. You have to hydrate yourself well so that there is no burden on your kidneys. So all those things have to be taken care of while
Yes.
when we recommend these kinds of diet. But lifelong following of these fat diets is not possible.
Yeah, understand. So it is so fascinating to hear about these different dietary approaches and their importance of sustainability and safety. So now coming to the next question, we know that behavioral change is often a significant challenge in diabetes management. So how do you approach this, especially when dealing with ingrained lifestyle habits?
Right. So to be very frank, this is the most challenging part of the practice, right? So we see different kind of people, different personas. Some are very casual in their approach. Some are completely in denial. They feel they don't have anything. They are doing all good. Some people are extra conscious about their health. Some are Google doctors. Some are genuinely too busy. So we might have to take different approach managing each personas. But the secret to success is listening to them, spending enough time with them, understanding their challenges and the root cause behind these chronic conditions. Right? You need a lot more than that normal regular 10-minute consults to connect with these patients. So in today's world, people understand the language of target and goals, right? We all have some kind of professional and personal targets. So setting up short-term goals for their health parameters. For example, if somebody's weight is 85 kgs and BMI is 27 and he has to lose 20 kgs to achieve a normal BMI of 23. If we tell him you need to lose 20 kgs, it might sound like a big task. But if we tell him to lose 2 to 3 kgs per month, in 6 to 7 months time, you can easily achieve your ideal BMI. This looks doable, and then person is motivated to do that. But suddenly if we give him a shock, you have to lose 20 kg, it comes as a shock, right? And then he is demotivated right from day one. This is not possible for me. So setting up short-term goals is something that helps, and along with that, giving them a plan of action, right? A blueprint for lifestyle changes, taking one step at a time rather than giving 10 things to do. Let's focus on the most important thing which you feel needs to be fixed on priority. So note that down and make changes in that step by step manner. And every time the patient is visiting for the follow-up or you are doing the consult, reassess those goals and how much patient has been able to achieve that. Motivate them, congratulate them on the success what they have made so far, and whatever is not yet done, we have to keep understanding the cause, why they are not able to do it, the barriers they are facing, and we have to help them manage that. So all that I works rather than just giving them a order saying do this or you need to avoid this. That doesn't work. So I believe in practicing P4 medicine, which is preventive, predictive, participatory, and personalized. Each P is equally important, but if we talk about participatory, let the patient participate in this decision making process. So in our context of setting up goals, right, while making the plan of action, let him take give his inputs. How much is it possible for him practically to achieve those goals? What all things he will be able to do, whatever guidelines about diet and physical activity you are asking him to do, whether he is able to follow, how much he will be able to follow that you have to understand. So making him involved into this process is very important. Give him that ownership, right? And we all are there to support, all right, to guide him whenever he is able, he's off track, because these chronic conditions, being chronic, there are always ups and downs, but if you have the right team of people with you to manage these patients, we are able to get them back on track. So these are my this is how I follow in my practice. These are small things which help me achieve patient's goal for them.
And that was so insightful, and thank you for sharing that. And I think you rightly said that personalized touch and personalized approach is necessary for decision making, and sometimes that even seems crucial.
Yes.
Now let's talk a bit about technology. Can you discuss the role of technology and digital health tools such as continuous glucose monitors and mobile health apps in supporting lifestyle modification for diabetes management?
Sure. So technology and digital health tools are vital in managing patients, especially in this era, right? When we used to practice 20 years back, things were different. And now definitely things have changed. People are getting educated about it. People are using the technology themselves, right? So if earlier people used to trust patients, doctors blindly, right? They used to have so much trust in their doctors, so whatever was being advised they used to follow. But things have changed. People want evidence nowadays, so before they come to doctor's office, they have already googled everything about their condition, and they have reached the worst possible diagnosis, right? So especially in chronic conditions, it is very difficult to make them adhere or follow whatever plans you give. If it is generic, people are not going to follow. If you just give them the printed do's and don'ts about diet and physical activity, they are not going to follow. So it has to be personalized. So when they see the sugar spike on the CGM after having a particular food, right, for example mango or ice cream or any carb rich food, the chances of them adhering to the dietary guidelines are much higher than just telling them to avoid ABC, right? So CGM is a great tool. I mean, I have been using it since the time they have launched it in the market, so almost 7-8 years, and it is very helpful in managing all kinds of diet, whether it is type 1, type 2 or gestational diabetes, compared to conventional methods of monitoring sugars. It helps us understand glucose trend over 24 hours. So it is not only about the numbers, but it also helps us understand the variations or fluctuations in the sugars, or concept of time in range, right? Because invariably HbA1c is the average sugar of last 3 months. So it can give us the false picture. If there is a hypoglycemia events happening commonly, the average reading can be on the lower side. So CGM help us understand these hypoglycemia events, especially the nocturnal ones, which are invariably unnoticed and dangerous. It helps us prepare customized plans for our patients in terms of diet, exercise, medicines, etc. It helps us adherence to these lifestyle changes what we want to bring them in. So this is a excellent tool in today's world, I feel, and I'm completely in the awe of this tool from day one. And if we talk about the mobile applications, and I feel it is like your personal assistant, right? So we can track our food intake, physical activity, medication, sleep, so many things on the app. You can do a lot of analysis with this data, and especially people with today's generation, they also love doing analysis. So notification, nudges, reminders on these applications help them increase the adherence and hence manage the lifestyle disorders better. Many platforms do also conduct live exercise sessions. They conduct webinars. They have a lot of educational videos and a lot of libraries on the food and recipes, etc. So it is a huge tool for any patient or anybody living with chronic conditions. So if you use the technology in a right spirit, it is definitely helpful for you. For both the healthcare professionals as well as the patients. The only drawback is patients who are not tech savvy, especially the senior citizens or people living in the rural area. There we can have issues, but we always ask patients, family members, the children, the grandchildren to support them use these application or scanning the sensors, etc. And they do it. When they get so many insights from these technology, definitely people are very happy to use this.
Yes, technology is actually a game changer right now, even in healthcare. We are seeing so much of AI coming into healthcare these days.
True.
So finally, what is the role of healthcare practitioners in managing lifestyle disorders?
Yes, so important one, right? So as if you're aware, as per ICMR survey which was done last year in 2023, India has 101 million people living with diabetes and 136 million people living with pre-diabetes. It's a huge number, right? So it becomes a social responsibility to fight a war against these lifestyle disorders. And as mentioned earlier, we need to create awareness. We need to give the right kind of education to patients. We need to explain them all kind of preventive measures, be it vaccination. Nowadays adult vaccination is completely unknown thing, right? If we talk about vaccination, people just know the childhood vaccination schedule, right? But people living with diabetes, elderly people are also equally prone to getting catch infections. So these people have to be vaccinated. So normal flu vaccine, influenza vaccine, pneumonia vaccine, shingles, zoster vaccine. So these are the lifesavers. So talk about these vaccination to your patients. Explain them simple things like how to take care of feet, how to check the sensation, how to clean your feet and keep it moist, and how to avoid dry skin. So many things we can keep educating them so that they don't land up into any kind of complications. Diabetes is coming at a very younger age nowadays. Earlier it used to be a disease after 40 or 50 years. Nowadays we are seeing teenagers having type 2 diabetes. So, and all this is happening obviously because of poor lifestyle. But now at least our aim is to keep their health in good shape and let them be away from the complications which can happen because of diabetes. So all these things we have to explain to them. Simple things what you can do at the clinic. Simple instruments are required, right? You can do the foot examination to assess the neuropathy. Simple check on the sensation or the blood pressure check on the feet. All these things can be done, and you can the retina screening using fundoscopy, which can be done at the clinic level, at the general practitioner setup also it can be done. And if you can notice any changes, we can always take the help of our specialist doctors and experts, and we can refer the patients to them. But as a practicing doctor in the clinics and in the field, I feel we have to educate people and just keep talking them about all these complications which can happen because of diabetes, or any other lifestyle disorders. So I think we should take a pledge to make the society healthier. This is what I feel.
Yes, I think educating the right knowledge and right amount to the patients is also important, because as you earlier said that Google also spreads a lot of misconceptions and wrong information in patients' minds. So right amount of education is also necessary.
Absolutely.
So
And if it is coming from a validated source is always better, right? Rather than having any WhatsApp forwards and I mean, nowadays anybody is making reels and talking about a lot of stuff, which is might not be correct, right? So we have to give them the right information.
exactly. The source also matters a lot.
Yes.
So as we conclude this session, I would like to thank Dr. Aarti Joshi and your dedication to patient care and your innovative strategies truly make a difference to us.
Thank you, Hetvi. Thank you so much. And thanks again for inviting me for this podcast.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this insightful episode of MedSynapse podcast. We hope you found this discussion as enlightening and empowering as we did. And remember, if you are a healthcare professional who is eager to delve deeper into medical topics or have questions, don't hesitate to join us on MedSynapse platform. MedSynapse platform is not just a resource. It's a dynamic space where you can connect with your medical peers, participate in meaningful discussions, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of healthcare. So until next time, stay updated, stay informed, and take care.